Good evening, everyone. Hope that melted your eardrums a little bit. New Alluvial found out they're coming to Columbia next, in January, and I got to go see these guys. I want to get my face just absolutely ripped off by crunchy, loud, guttural death metal. But anyway, so as you can see in the description, I've got Paul Berry III on with me tonight. He is running for Lieutenant Governor of Missouri. So let me get the recording started, and we shall proceed with the Freedom Talk.
In the restaurant of life, we're putting freedom back on the menu. It's the Missouri Liberty Report with John Williams, working with grassroots organizations and legislatures to make Missouri the freest state in the nation. Let freedom ring.
All right, we are back with another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Thanks to everyone who listens via radio, podcast, or watch the live stream on YouTube and Rumble. I appreciate you all. I'm going to have a great show tonight. Have Paul Berry III with me. He is running for Lieutenant Governor here in the great state of Missouri. So without further ado, Mr. Berry, good evening and welcome to the show.
Hey, good evening to you, John.
Hey, good to have you on. Glad I got to, again, as we both know, and some of you may know, that Tom Martz had Mr. Berry here on his program, and Tom linked myself and Mr. Berry together, and so here we are. I guess to start off the show, Paul, if you would, give everybody a little bit of your background, and then we'll get into your candidacy and some of the topics affecting us here in Missouri.
Hey, John, and thank you. And it's an honor to speak with a fellow patriot as yourself. If I had to explain myself in 5 words, the first word would be Christian. Second word would be father. Third word would be patriot. Fourth word would be constitutionalist. And fifth word would be a capitalist. I love this country, and I'm very concerned that the core of America is being lost, not just on the coast, but right here in the great state of Missouri. One of the reasons I'm running for Lieutenant Governor is that I want to take the awesome power of the state of Missouri, and I want to be the chief lobbyist for the people, not just for rich fat cats, but for constitutional values, family values, and things that we care about. And I also want to protect a lot of our state reps and senators, honestly, from being extorted. A lot of them are, fearful of consultants or these re-election committees and, will support or throw good bills away based upon the fear factor of being re-elected. And, I feel a lot of extortion out there, John, and I just really want to fight back. To give you guys a little bit of background of my activist, I'm not a consultant. I'm not a lobbyist. I'm just a businessman that utilizes my personal resources and try to use it for good. In the St. Louis area, just to give you guys just a quick background, when Ferguson happened and all these riots were happening in my county, small businessmen were told that they could not defend their businesses or they'd be charged with murder or worse. I thought that there was a problem there. So what I did is I organized a whole bunch of ex-law enforcement and veterans, and we marched in Ferguson with AR-15s. It was covered by Rolling Stone, and we brought attention to the problem. In my area, there's a big push to merge the city of St. Louis, which is completely Democrat, with St. Louis County, and there was a lot of money involved. The guy by the name of Rex Dingfield was funding this effort. They spent millions of dollars, and after a long-term fight, Rex Dingfield fired every last one of those people, and he backed off of it just for some time. During COVID, my St. Louis County executive, Dr. Stan Page, decided he was going to shut the entire county down. And what did I do? I was the first person in the state to sue him because my daughter was a high school senior. She's cheerleading, and standing outside 6 feet apart with masks, my county executive still wouldn't allow my daughter to cheerlead. And why does it matter? Because the schools in St. Louis and the kids that didn't get to participate, they were behind the curve when it was about time to get scholarships for their activities. The airport, we have an airport here, and I'm usually for privatization, but when they want to privatize it to some guy that's basically running, Jeff City through campaign donations, I didn't think it was a good idea. So, Johnny Wyam is a guy that stands up where it needs to stand up. And if you look at my opponents and what they're about, I just run them down. One of my opponents is Dean Blocker. He is currently the Missouri Speaker, and apparently he doesn't know the difference between stealing and reimbursements to the state. So there was an issue where he utilized his campaign funds to pay for certain expenditures and then double dip and went back to the state of Missouri and asked them to pay for the same expenditures. One of them was a $400 valet parking in Waikiki, which I really don't understand, unless we're bringing more pineapples to Missouri, what the Speaker of the House is doing out there on the state dime. My other opponent is Holly Rader. Just to give you a couple highlights, she was the chief architect behind the prescription drug database, which I think is a horrid violation of constitutional rights and leaves us all vulnerable to hacking with our medical information. Government has not always shown themselves as being the best at protecting our information. Some of her other highlights from this last session is she wanted the Department of DESE, our education department, to establish a curriculum that was to be taught at every school for health and family planning. Now, I cannot think of a dumber idea than to let DESE with a bunch of nonprofits decide what family planning curriculum should be taught to our kids. Local school districts should deal with that problem. And my other opponent, Bob Binder, he's an interesting fellow. So, he has voted right in the past in the Senate, but it comes down to leadership. And John, anybody can get up, and my mom used to tell me the same. You don't get credit for doing the right thing. Okay, and if you are a senator and you don't vote for a bad bill, that doesn't really make you a great leader. It doesn't make you at least understand the way you're supposed to vote. But the lieutenant governor's position is about leadership. It's not just about votes. And I challenge Bob Binder of what he's really accomplished and what he's really fought for, John, this guy's doing $500,000 in his own election, purportedly from his own money, but that's a conversation we'll get into on another episode of where I think that money came from. But the point is that you could put in $500,000 for yourself, but I don't ever see a track record of you putting serious money in to help the cause. And, that's just an issue that I take seriously. And I just don't think that he stood up, and that's going to be something we're going to talk about over this election segment.
Okay, fair enough. Listen, you won't, you will not find any fans of Plocker, especially in the viewers in the live stream. We all have a deep distrust of Dean Plocker and of Holly Rader. Yes, Miss PDMP herself. I specifically loathe PDMP. I thought it was a ridiculous idea, and to me, the worst logic of why they pushed so hard for PDMP was, we're the only state without it. It's like, well, good. That's a great way to lead forward, is to say, instead of being like every other state and taking your medical information and putting it in a database, let's not be like everybody else and be medical tyrants. Let's have a little more medical freedom here. And they decided, nope, Holly Rader and people of her ilk decided, no, we need to be like everybody else. And I'm assuming, now I've never looked into it, I've never tracked it down, but I'm assuming there was some federal money that was probably promised to the state if they passed the PDMP, just like seatbelt laws and so many other things. Oh, if you don't pass these laws, you're not getting your federal money. Well, half the budget's federal money now, so I think we can cut ourselves off a little bit. Would you agree with that there is way too much federal funding coming into this state?
Absolutely. Well, the thing is that I think that, there was no federal money there. It's just, Holly Rader's just sort of a phony on this issue. She makes these claims that her daughter has some drug issue and this was the cause of it. And, I've heard her say things like, oh, well, she got this from Grandpa's medicine cabinet. I mean, look, I was a career bail bondsman before I got involved this heavy into politics. And I've seen things from a grainier street level. And Missouri, at least St. Louis, leads every bad statistic you can think of except overdose. So if PMPD was just such, and one of the things, John, somebody needs to do a study on is they need to, look at all this stuff and say, was there a reduction in overdoses? Or did they go up? And I'm willing to bet that they went up. So, her whole ideology here is just shot.
Well, yeah, and of course, overdoses, of course, went up because of the, I'm sure overdoses went up in St. Louis and, like Jackson County, St. Louis County, wherever you had these tyrants during COVID because people, they talked about deaths of despair. Overdoses skyrocketed everywhere because people felt like they had nothing left. Their livelihoods were ruined. They couldn't see loved ones. All these things were happening to them. And so did the PDP or PDMP protect people from deaths of despair? Absolutely not. So it was just stupidity at its highest level. It's faulty reasoning, just like a lot of other government things. Bad logic, faulty reasoning, outright lies and propaganda. And look at us. It didn't solve the problem. It's just, again, these laws are created on the basis of emotion. It's based on intent, but these people do not think about the outcome of their bills. They don't care because they're not based in critical thinking, and that causes a lot of heartache for a lot of people who are just trying to live their lives.
Well, in Holly Rader, she's running around like she's Oprah. She has some book that she's pushing, and I guess she thinks she's the queen of resolving issues. But, I just tell you the hypocrisy. Last session, she pushed a bill that basically stated that a judge could not take a person that's on misdemeanor probation and require them to take drug testing or alcohol testing unless they were convicted of a drug or alcohol bill. Now, let me tell you, from the statement, it may not sound like such a bad idea, but let me tell you the stupidity of it. Do you know the crime that most drug addicts are arrested for? Stealing.
Right.
Is stealing a drug or alcohol offense? No. So if I go and steal from 6 Walmarts alcohol, okay, because I'm an alcoholic and I get caught, under Holly's suggested bill, you could not even put that person on drug or alcohol monitoring. Let's talk about, for instance, just another example, domestic violence. Ask any cop the play of alcohol and drugs on domestic violence situations. In 8 out of 10 times, there is alcohol or drugs involved. So if you slap your wife and the person was drunk, and the judge can't put that person on probation for drugs. Or see, and these are the type of things that lets me know that Holly just is not ready to be second in command. One thing I can tell you about the lieutenant governor position, if there ever is a true disaster in this state and our governor is immobilized, hurt, kidnapped, anything bad, do you really want this type of person in charge of the state? No.
No, I could think of, I could probably pull someone off the street that I would trust more than a Holly Rader or Dean Plocker at the lieutenant governor position, because they've proven themselves unable to really represent the people just at the position. Maybe even before they were a speaker or whatever position they've had, just as a representative, they have proven themselves incapable of holding to the Constitution and really representing the way they're supposed to their constituents. They just, again, propagandize. Oh, look at me, and if I'm a constituent of hers and the only thing she has to brag on is PDMP, that's not a really resounding, endorsement for a candidate.
Well, that's one of the reasons she's running for lieutenant governor. She's out. Her first term for Senate will be over next year. She's not running for re-election because she can't win in her Senate district again. And she's trying to take her wares of what she did there and think it's going to be better over a diluted area of the state of Missouri. The thing with Dean Plocker, he is the Missouri Speaker, and anybody that follows government knows that the Speaker of the House, whether it's federal or state, is usually the second most powerful person in the whole government, right? So what does he expect to do as lieutenant governor other than to hold on to some government position that he couldn't do as Speaker of the House? And, this just goes back to, John, why we're failing in Jeff City. Okay, we're failing because we are electing people in these prominent positions that don't support the Constitution, really. Holly Rader, Dean Plocker, if they lived in different areas, they would be Democrats. I guarantee it. Okay, if they lived in a place where there was a majority group of Democrats, they'd be Democrats. They only run as a Republican just because they can't win any other way, Not by the things they're voting for, not by the things they're standing for.
Right, and and I'm going to get into this later after we're done talking, Paul. We just went to a meet and greet. A few of us here, Patrick Hollins, who's not in the live stream tonight, but Gary Ride, Holly Jones, and Justin Sparks were there, and they were talking about the HRCC and how it is implied that the more money you raise for the HRCC, that gives you a better shot, or that really gives you a great shot at chairing committees, and that's how you get to Dean Plocker's position. It's not based on your merits. It's based on how much money you raise, and then the HRCC, along with the lobbyists, are crawling the halls like a bunch of wild animals or some kind of demonic beings, and putting these people in the highest places. And it's, again, not based on merit. It's all based on money. And it doesn't take... It doesn't... Go ahead.
I can speak directly to that. So I ran for Congress in 2022, okay? And there was a group of state reps that had endorsed me. They're going to do an event. And it wasn't because I'm some big fancy lobbyist, okay, or I'm worth $1 billion. It's because of the work that I put in to their districts. Not even where I live, John, okay, to their districts. And people from the HRCC ran those state reps and told them that if they did one more thing for Paul Berry, okay, that they would have a primary, their bills would be killed, they made all these threats. What they did was really a federal offense. Nobody will ever enforce it, but you can't use state committee funds in federal elections. And if you have people that are hired by the HRCC that are making those calls, and that's utilizing state funds in federal elections. Joe Biden will never do anything about it. I don't see the state doing anything. But, they're absolutely right that the HRCC has lost their mind, and that's one of the reasons I'm going to Jeff City is because I'm going to protect those state reps and those state senators from this type of activity. For whatever reason, and look, Holly Jones and Justin Sparks, good for you. Good for both of you, okay? Because, standing up to this corruption is what I am about. It's the whole reason for doing this, John. They can't bully me. I fought the Democrats. I ran for county executive. One of the guys I put in prison. The next guy is scared of his own shadow after our election. And, you may not win the seat if you're in a Democrat stronghold like St. Louis County, but by running and fighting the system, we have a better St. Louis County than we would have. Okay? And a lot of people are cowards and they won't run if they know they can't win. But I had to run because if I didn't, these Democrats would have had a free rein to do whatever they wanted.
Yeah, no, I understand. And that's the thing. When we're talking about the HRCC, I don't think many, and believe me, we're working on this, and this subject matter is going to become, or it's going to be talked a lot about in the coming episodes of this podcast, and I know some others, because some of the information that they drop to us could be big, and I think the voters in this state need to be aware of this organization and the things that they are doing at the Capitol or outside the Capitol to influence leadership and all these other things. It could be something really big, but so I guess
I actually agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And I think that if you really want to get back to having a good state, we have to address this. Now, I'm good with people making money. I'm not just opposed to consultants because they make money, but I am opposed to any ones that think that they're bigger than they are. And honestly, some of the state reps, they should have known their station and not surrendered. Now, there's pressure that they put on them, but honestly, you got to be able to take the pressure. So I don't give our state reps a full pass, but if you're asking me, are they being extorted or threatened or whatever words you want to use? In my opinion, absolutely. It absolutely is occurring. But the way to address it is to do what you're doing, John, is educating the people, keep talking about it, keep the pressure up, and don't surrender. And that's why I will always take time for journalists like yourself because, you're looking to educate the population in a way that fake news refuses to. So you have my support.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't do this show for glory. It's just that, and I've made this statement several times, we need more liberty-loving voices out there because, I can even look at the supposed conservative media, some of these big shots out there, and there's a lot of times I don't hear real conservative, not true conservative messaging, not true liberty-loving messaging. I hear a lot of, conservative talking points, and I feel like it's just a way I feel they're just as guilty as the other side of the aisle, their media, at keeping people fighting amongst themselves and everything else, and it's absolutely ridiculous, and it's not doing us any good. So I just feel like if you have a voice and you're educated and you want to help other people, figure out the ins and outs of Jefferson City, and we just need more people, and that's why I'm here. Hey, you be quiet over there. Sorry, my dog's barking.
Yeah, it absolutely. So look, as Lieutenant Governor, I want to be that watchdog. Okay. Now the governor, he signs bills, he runs the executive branch. Lieutenant Governor, the Attorney General, they file lawsuits to defend us in court. The Secretary of State is education and business registrations. The Treasurer is taking care of our investments. The auditors auditing, state and local jurisdictions. What does the Lieutenant Governor do except drive around and hand out resolutions at elementary schools? John, what he can be doing is utilizing that position to debate every bill that comes through the committee of the whole. So am I going to debate every single bill? No. But I will be debating the bills that I believe that may be getting snuck in because of lobbyist pressure or sometimes not understanding what the language that you're filing
what does it really mean in practicality? Because you can read something, it can make a lot of sense, right? But if you don't understand the practicality of it being applied, it may do some things that you're not looking to do as a conservative. So I don't think that everybody in Jeff City is a stone cold crook. What I do believe is that you have a few crooks and you have a lot of people that are good God-fearing people, but they don't know every angle because you only know what you know. You know what I mean? And as lieutenant governor, what I can do is when those bills get to the Senate, I can make sure that we're just not passing them along. Okay, I can make sure that if there's something like PMPD, I can at least make that stand, get it on the record, and making sure that there's not pressure from the lobbyists on our elected officials from voting conservative as a constitutionalist.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. You're talking about that, the bad bills. That was something else that was stated, that if you didn't, raise, again, going back to HRCC, if you didn't raise the money, do these things, you could have an outstanding bill. You were told, well, there's two parts to this. You could be told, well, okay, we're going to file this, but you're not going to get any credit for it. The other thing is that the lobbyists are there and they're going to the freshmen, because when you say, you only know what you know, they're going to these freshman reps and they're handing them bills and they're not reading them, and they're being told, this is a great bill, would you, file this in your name, and they're doing it, and then they're getting ambushed. They're setting themselves up for failure, because somebody's going to be like, okay, you're supposed to be this real conservative person. Why did you file this bill? The CBDC bill that was filed by, I can't remember his name now. He's from around the St. Louis area, supposed to be this really conservative guy. And we thought, oh, okay, we got another ally. And I believe Plocker hands him this bill on CBDC, and he files it. Well, now it looks like you're a Democrat. You're not a conservative. You conned your constituents. So now we're calling into question what kind of representative are we dealing with here?
Well, this is the thing. I am a huge supporter of term limits, right? But this, unfortunately, is a bad effect of term limits. And this is what I've learned. I got exactly what I wanted in Missouri some time ago, and, this is a bad effect. When you don't have legislators that understand exactly, what their duties are and what their powers are, right? You're bound to make these mistakes. Now, you have the ones that are corrupt. We know they're corrupt. There's no excuse for it. There's no even conversation about it, instead of getting rid of them, right? But I'm trying to talk about the people in the gray area that could be better legislators. That's just one of the problems of by the time you really understand your authority and know how to play the game, quote unquote, in Jeff City, it's time to leave, okay? And there's good and bad in that. We don't want people there 30, 40 years. Like, we had a speaker in I'm neighboring Illinois on my side of the state, and I think he was speaker like 25, 30 years or something, Manigan. And, he ended up getting into some trouble, and it was complete corruption, right? But, I think that I am really glad. I like Holly Jones. Her and I have just started to get to know each other a little bit. She actually hosts a radio show on my side of the state, and I was invited as a guest. And I hadn't really known her well. I knew her predecessors there. It's always been a good state rep district, just with basic good conservatives over there in Eureka. But, I was really impressed with her. And the fact that Justin Sparks is speaking up against this stuff, maybe he's starting to look like future leadership for our party. I'm really excited about that. In fact, that was good news of hearing this from me.
Yeah, I get, it's one of those things where they started dropping these tidbits. Well, it wasn't tidbits. They just came out and spoke right out and said, hey, folks, we want you to be aware. This is why these things are happening. This is what's going on. And it got real quiet in that hall. Everybody just got real silent because because
everybody's scared, because everybody's scared of the truth. But you know what? I'm glad you said it, because I need to go find Justin Sparks tomorrow because he has a friend in me in fighting that battle.
Yeah, it was the thing where a lot, some of us there knew that we know there's corruption there. I mean, it's plain to see when you're filing bills like SEPA or gold and silver, and then you watch leadership hand the floor over for an hour and a half to Democrats while they say the absolute dumbest things that you can say about gold and silver. And then what do? They go to recess, and that bill dies because the House and the Senate weren't getting the bills that they wanted. And but we knew there was the corruption there, and we know that it's kind of common sense. Yeah, the people who raise the most money get the leadership positions because, unfortunately, the states emulate the federal government in a lot of ways. But it was just good to hear the specifics of this and to really hear the information straight from a representative, because it's so much more credible coming from a person like me who's only been doing this for a few years, and I'm no expert. But to hear it coming from two reps, without any
and two younger reps,
right?
Too. That's the key here. And one of the things I can tell you, I'm not going to let their political careers go down the tubes because they stood up. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stand tall for them. I'm so glad. You know what? This conversation here is actually more important than my lieutenant governor's race. As much as I would wish my lieutenant governor's race was more important, because the thing is that I get elected, you guys don't have to worry about that in that seat, because I'm not going to let a single one of those guys get that off. But the real problem is fixing our house, okay, our Missouri House. And you have a speaker who apparently, again, doesn't know the difference between using his campaign card or using government funds. That's one thing. But, Dean Fokker may or may not be speaker for one more year. We still have a corrupt system, John. And I think that now is the time to take that on. You make a commitment on your show, just talk about this issue for at least 10 minutes every show. You'll start to see changes, because the people need to be educated on this. And look, I have actually gotten calls from other journalists, okay, on this issue. You're the first one that's actually opened their mouth to say it that I've heard. So kudos for you, John.
Well, again, I appreciate that. Yeah, we heard so many things, and I'm waiting. I am working on getting Representative Sparks on with me. But one of the other big things they mentioned is that they were invited to a fundraiser. They went to this building with no name on the front of it. They walk down this long hallway. They go in. It's like a speakeasy, and there's lobbyists and these representatives in the same room. And he's like, it's freaking creepy. It was just something out of it. Well, again, when you talk about these things, people relate this type of behavior. We always relate it to the federal government, because everybody talks about how corrupt the federal government is. And people are having a problem grasping the fact that it's happening in the state. It's happening right here, where you have more control,
Well, I'm going to tell you a sorry statistic, and I wish I had better news for you, John. But the people at the federal level are choir boys compared to these guys running in Missouri with this whole operation here. How we're going to go after this? Look, it's just old school, man. I don't mind telling you my plan. The HRCC, they got donors that donate, right? And, if Black Lives Matter can run around and do what they do and get corporations to do backflips, I'm going to make them do a flip like Dominique Dawes, okay, landing when it comes to getting with these corporations. I'm just going to start informing them of what they're dealing with. And, if those that want to stay and want to keep going down that route, well, we'll just have to battle it out in the media. But the key here is for you and others that are true patriots that have a platform to keep banging the drum, okay? They're going to try to get you to be quiet. How they get to you, John, is they're going to offer – you become enough noise, you'll start getting sponsorship offers, and then they're going to ask you, something simple to the effect of, well, why don't you stay away from this issue, or why don't you stay away from this candidate, or why? That's just how it works, man. I run a pretty significant media operation in eastern Missouri, and I've had statewide TV show me politics with Paul Berry III, and I've had them approach me, and people get mad, and I would never do it because honestly, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, okay, and I'm nobody's slave. I'm a free man of the union. I put my pants on like everybody else. So the minute that I have to sell out is the minute that I don't want to be in this business anymore.
Yeah, this is going to be a big battle, and sometimes when you get into these subjects, and I'm not saying this would happen, but sometimes things get a little ugly, and I sit there and think, I'm not a rich man by any means. I don't have a lot of money. I'm not wealthy. What are you going to take from me? There's nothing that you can take from me that is going to make me, grovel at your feet, because I don't want to live that way. I don't want to be at someone's beck and call. And I don't want to be, I don't want to come on this show and then suddenly go, oh, everything, that's off topic. We're not touching that anymore. I've done it for 4 years. Why stop now? And again, like you said, the message has to be heard. People have to stop wanting to be so comfortable and just, come to grips with the fact that, because you voted for someone that said that they were a Republican or a liberty lover doesn't mean you get to put on your blindfold and ignore everything they do after that. You have to hold these people accountable. If they're not doing what they're supposed to do, get them out.
Well, this is one thing. If this was still 1776, my whole thing about this is I think we should be under British rule. I mean, that's just where I think some of these guys are. I don't think that they're tough enough, and like when I look at my opponents, I hope we have a debate. I would guess that they'll never debate me because then they have to talk about their record, all three of them. And I'm willing to put my record up for the things I fought for and what I've sacrificed and what I've had to do to try to push back,
Absolutely. I mean, it's just like anything else you see, Paul, when you get in with these politicians and everything else, it's the same thing all the time. If you come at people who are intellectually dishonest or they're just flat out liars or propagandists, whatever, if you start spitting facts, what do? They start name calling, they start yelling, slamming their hands down, whatever. But their actions prove that they don't have a leg to stand on, and they're what they're saying is a flat out lie. It's so easy to point out most of the time. Now, some of them can get real flowery with their speech or whatever, but most time you can spot the liars in a debate right off the bat because they just can't back up their statements with facts.
Well, this is one thing I can tell you because I've been through a lot of the mudslinging. So when somebody mudslings, this is what you have to ask yourself: is what they're saying, if true, does it affect you or who you are or your principles or your state or whatever, right? And you'll find that that's a great way to figure out what's gutter and what actually matters, okay? So let me give you an example, okay? If there was a person that said they had attacked somebody, right? Would that bother you? It probably would bother me. So that's something that I would consider. Do I care about Trump and his filings that nobody apparently didn't lose any money? I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I am not, I've said this many times. I'm not a Trump fan, but what they're doing to him right now is completely asinine. And, it's ridiculous. It's not based on anything that is really necessary. All it is there's just a hatred for somebody, and they hate him so dang much they'll do whatever they can to destroy him. And, people have to this is something else people have to come to grips with. The Democrats are all like, yeah, go get him. The thing that they don't realize is if they're going to do this to somebody who's running for office, what makes you think that at some point in time somebody's not going to turn around and do the same thing to you? You should not be cheering on this type of behavior because it can be pointed right back at you. And you know what? More than likely down the road, if we keep traveling this path, it is going to happen to everyday people. And then
it already does. It happened to me. Let me cut you off here.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, but this is the thing, okay? It's somebody like myself. I went through everything he went through. It just isn't televised 24 hours a day. They went after my businesses. They went after me. All of a sudden, things that were never questioned are now questioned on how your business practices are. I survived it, thank God, because I'm just a hard worker and I know how to fight. But these people will take you out, And the thing is, this is the thing with Trump. I don't like everything he says, but I don't want a same-sex marriage with the man. I just want him to lower my taxes and keep appointing Supreme Court justices. Okay? That's Trump's legacy. When you talk about 50 years from now, it's not going to be this. It's going to be all of the good public policy that we were able to get out the gate are stopped, okay, from bad court rulings. And that's his legacy, and people don't look at it like that. The thing with DJT, and I got thrown out of a black radio interview almost physically because I brought up one point, okay? I said Trump has not been president since January 2021, right?
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
So why is it that we wait till 2023 to charge him with anything? Okay? That's what makes it look political. I have my political views, but I also can take myself away from my political views, and I can just sort of make an assessment here. And my assessment's real simple. If you say it wasn't political, then why wait? Did they not know about any of these documents or any of this stuff? Or did they slow roll this thing so it come right in the middle of the election? One thing Trump said that it was true is that if he wasn't running for president, none of this stuff would have happened. Now, I believe that to my heart.
No, you know what? I would absolutely agree with that statement. There's no doubt about that. This is purely political. But again,
and I'm not some blind zombie that's just supporting anybody just to support them. That's just a cold, hard fact.
Yeah.
They just, I don't see it. Okay, and
this is one thing I wish somebody would explain to me, and we're going to get a little bit more loose because it's the end of the interview. But there's a lot of lawyers testifying. I thought that attorney-client privilege protected a lot of these conversations. And when you're talking about things that, like, the whole problem I have is I challenged the lawsuits at the same time Trump did. I didn't challenge them because they said the machines and all this other stuff. Where they cheated was we filed, and then they changed all the rules after we filed. That's like playing football, okay, and in the fourth quarter, the Dallas Cowboys don't like the way the game's going, so they say all field goals now count for 6 instead of 3. That's what they did. All this, in my county, just to give you an example, I wake up one morning and I'm reading the local rag paper, and they're talking about Mark Zuckerberg's nonprofit put $2 million, cut a $2 million check to my county election board. And I'm like, why? And then I call the board. They don't give me any information. I do a sunshine request, John, and find that there was a contract. I read the contract, and there was all this stuff on how they had to report to this Facebook group. It was the craziest thing that I've ever saw. And I'm like, no. The only person that you report to is you report to the voters of the state of Missouri. Okay? And they're like, well, that's normal for getting a grant. So they want to make sure money's being used. I was like, why? And nobody to this day has ever explained to me where this money was used for. Early voting, absentee voting. I ran an election against Steve Stinger. It was 13% absentee vote. The absentee vote in my election was in the 60s to 70s in the next election. I mean, I just, they wake up one day and tell you something else. They said that you can vote at any precinct within the county. Any precinct. It didn't matter. Not, and we're all assigned a precinct. Why? Because that's how we can track the fraud. I couldn't figure out who voted where, and you know what I've learned, John? I'm not doing any more complaining, okay? this is what we went through. You know, if I was sitting with the president, I'd tell him right now, yeah, we got cheated, but talking about it ain't going to get us nowhere. The best thing we can do is learn our lessons and make sure that it doesn't happen again. And that's just where I'm at with it, brother.
Yeah, you know, okay, before you go, I have to ask you one question. And I know this isn't Missouri related, but this took off and became a firestorm yesterday. What do you think about Vivek Ramaswamy's comments about the leadership of the Republican National Committee and all the things he said during that debate on on Wednesday night? What do you think about his comments?
Well, I think that there's a lot of truth, okay, that the RNC is definitely dropping the ball. The problem that I have with what he said is twofold. Number one, he hasn't been around Republican politics enough to criticize anything about anything, okay? He's sort of a guy that's sitting up, he's not at CPAC. He's not at any of these things that we're doing. Now, do you have to be that to run for president? No. But what I'm telling you is to criticize the party, you need to sort of be part of the party. You understand what I'm saying? You need to be somebody that's on the front lines. It's easy to sit back as a commentator, and quite frankly, I consider him and Bob Iger two of the same creatures. Very eloquent, very intelligent, sometimes hit it on the cue, but if you're not on the field, I don't want to hear the criticism. One thing I did like what he said is when he brought up Nikki Haley's daughter. And to me, to say, oh, you need to worry about your daughter, she's on the platform. Look, there's one thing about serious politicians. Families are not touched unless they put themselves in the political ring, okay? Especially young kids. And he lost all respect for me. I think he's a very highly intelligent guy, but I also think that he's a snake oil salesman when it comes to some of the stuff he's doing. And if he spent more time with the party or at least involved, then his opinions would be more credible from the intelligence that he obviously has. He's brilliant. Okay, he's absolutely brilliant. But when I listen to him, it seems like he takes positions that are easy to take because people say, oh, yeah, sure, but they're not really going through the progression of how do we really make change and how do we really implement the stuff he's talking about. That's just my opinion.
All right. Well, any last words for us before you go, Paul? And maybe, before the election, I'd sure like to have you back on again.
Well, I'm definitely going to come back if you'll have me because I want to get into some HRCC stuff. I'm going to put together a whole profile. I'll come back on and we'll really educate the public. But I will be tuning in. You get Justin Sparks. I'll reach out to Holly Jones and see if I can get her in touch with you because she's a phenomenal – I had no idea. I sort of had a conversation with her like this on her radio show. She fills in sometimes on the morning shows in my town, and I knew nothing about her other than, where she lives and what district she was, and I was really impressed. So, maybe we get her on or just keep talking about this issue, even if it's just 10 minutes or 15 minutes. We got to have an outlet. Most outlets won't talk about this yet, so you're going to be the first guy, tipping the sword. I did mention a little bit of this with Tom and, on the Springfield network out there, but we not to the detail that we are doing now. So,
all right. Well, Paul, thanks so much for coming on with me tonight. I look forward to talking to you again real soon. And like I said, we'll have you on here again in the not too distant future and talk more about your campaign, brother.
Yep, absolutely. Because I'm in the St. Louis market, I want to thank all the people down in the lake and all you constitutionalists. Look, not a perfect guy, but I'm the guy for the time. I'm ready to fight. Paul Berry III for Lieutenant Governor. Hey, John, do me a favor. I'm not in your market, so send me a link when you guys get up and running. All right, brother?
All right, we'll do. Thanks, and have a great weekend, Paul.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody, that was Paul Berry III. As you can tell, he's kind of a no-nonsense guy. I know we didn't talk a lot about everything. We didn't get into everything I wanted to, but he got held up big time by traffic. He had to redirect, and it put him way behind getting home. And I felt bad because he's like, it would have been better for him to go later, but he's like, no, if you get on 6:30 He's like, we'll do 6:30. So I appreciate time. He's trying to drive through St. Louis traffic and talk on the phone at the same time. Couldn't have been real easy. But yeah, folks, we'll continue on. I got about 7 minutes and something before we break for KEYK, but just wanted to kind of highlight Holly Jones had a meet and greet last Sunday. Her and Gary Ride, one of the faithful listeners here on the Missouri Liberty Report, and somebody that I really enjoy hanging out with and talking to. They had a meet and greet. She brought Justin Sparks along, and it was fantastic. Tom March was there. Patrick Holland was there. Of course, Gary Wright and his wife Becky were there. Duncan and his friend Kevin came up from my way and showed up. It was a fantastic. The information that dropped in that meeting was fantastic. And so I would just ask all of you that watch this, listen in, whatever. We are going to be discussing the HRCC at great length in the not-too-distant future. As soon as I can get Justin on, Holly told me next month is way better for her. She's not going to be home much this month, apparently, and which is completely understandable. She's a busy gal. So we'll have her on next month. We're going to have 2 reps on here in this show. And we're going to start beating up on this topic. Because, again, we all kind of understood the corruption in Jefferson City between Plocker, Patterson, and, quite frankly, a lot of others. But when you hear these things that they said about the HRCC, how each one of them, each member of the House, I'm sure the Democrats have their own thing. We're talking the Republican side. Okay? They're all handed an envelope with an amount of money that they want this said representative to raise for them. And then it is implied that if they do these things, they're much more likely to get chair positions in the committee that they want. Okay? Now, we're not talking a few $100. We're talking $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. It really depends on what district you're in, how big it is, how populated it is. Each representative is handed an envelope with a dollar amount. And, so right off the bat, we have, pay to play. This, again, we talk about this so much on the federal level. People have got to understand that at the state level, it's just as bad. I don't think people grasp this. And that's a sad fact because, the nightly news, if you turn on these horrible media stations on cable or local TV, and you listen to them, it's all federal. They're going to shut down the government, or this, or that. But right here in Missouri, we have the same thing going on. You raise money for us, we'll get you positions you want. And I believe I could be mistaken, but I believe if you get a chaired committee position, that's a little more money that you make on top of your normal salary for being because state reps don't make a lot of money. They really don't. But, so there's kind of an implied proposition there that, hey, if you get us this money, then we'll get you the position you want. You'll get to chair your whatever committee that, you really hold near and dear. And then the speakeasies that apparently are around Jefferson City that, again, there's no name on the outside of the building. We were told about, you walk in, there's a lobby, there was a long hallway, kind of dark hallway, go to the back, Open up the doors of this room. It's a speakeasy. Chandeliers hanging down. There's a bar. Everything else. And there's the lobbyist mingling with, the representatives. And, even like blackmail was kind of brought up. All these things. Now, my state rep says he's never been invited to one of those. And I don't remember what the amount was on his envelope because we had a local Gasconade County Republican Club meeting this past Monday. And Duncan's friend Kevin just flat out asked the questions. And, the thing was, Sassman got up there and was talking about stuff. And he went into this whole thing about paying back. If you go on a trip, you do this. And, all these things. And he's like, his argument was, I'm not saying that what he did was right, but we've had 2 reps being tossed out for their behavior, and we just can't lose any more Republican seats. And it's like, okay, that's your argument. If Plocker is not acting like a Republican, are we losing anything anyway? If they're acting like Democrats, then what are we losing? We're not losing anything. We're losing a Republican that acts like a Democrat. We're losing a so-called conservative who's acting like a liberal. So we're not really losing anything. Now listen, I have to tell you a short story here. I'll tell it after I break for KEYK here. But and some of you will find it quite amusing. And I'm surprised that the word weirdo hasn't been just being spammed in the live chat here on YouTube or Rumble. But anyway, with that being said, to those of you in the KEYK audience, thanks so much for joining me this week for the Missouri Liberty Report. And just so you all know, I'm working on more guests. I'm trying to get Justin Sparks on here. I will be working to get Holly Jones on here. But for those of you in that area, in that radio network, make sure you keep tuning in and listening because there's going to be a lot of good information that's going to make you a much more educated voter in the coming weeks. So I hope you all stay tuned for that. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you all next week right here on the Missouri Liberty Report. All right, so I got to tell this story real quick because Gary brought it up in a live chat. So Holly allowed Tom Martz, Patrick Holland, and myself to speak before they said their piece and took questions, right? So Misty, who is Holly's LA, is in the live chat right now. She says, yes, weirdo is a bad word, evidently. So I was talking about knowing your state rep, making sure they're actually conservative. If you're voting for conservative, and then we have to look inward, because if we're voting for people who are not conservatives, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, that we're partly to blame. But I was mentioning during my talk that I had been to Holly's office, and I talked to her, and she's very forthcoming. She tells you how she feels. She tells you what's going on. You get good information from Holly. And then I said, no disrespect to you, Representative Sparks, but I've never talked to you. I haven't had the chance to talk to you. Don't really know you. But I assume since you're with Holly, you're not some Democrat weirdo. Well, one woman that was at the event, oh my goodness, this is great. She goes, hey, would you stop throwing out adjectives like that? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, weirdo. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. And she goes, yeah, you should be. And I thought, uh-oh, we got a Democrat in the crowd, which is fine because the rest of the time she was very civil. She was civil the whole time, right? But a couple of things that she said and did and her reactions to certain statements told me that no doubt she was a Democrat. So, yes, as Gary said, I made a liberal cry. So I'm a rock star now. That was not my intent. And, you know, we were joking about it after the event. We were standing outside shooting a breeze, and I said, yeah, if that woman knew other words that rolled around in my head that I could have said in an if it would have been not a family-friendly environment, I said, she would have really been upset with me. I just used the word weirdo, and she didn't like that. She didn't want me throwing out that adjective, and I thought, oh, you poor baby. Poor baby. So, yeah, it's I don't know. It's, it was just, here's the thing, folks. I didn't take it to heart. I didn't get upset. But I thought, if I would have said conservative weirdo, that woman wouldn't have batted an eye. I put the word Democrat before the word weirdo, and she became a little I mean, she didn't throw a hissy fit, but she was very upset with me for saying the word weirdo, and that's pretty tame. You know, that's pretty tame language. But, yeah, she was very upset. But anyway, yeah, the information that we got at this meet and greet, I wish more people would have been there. But it was a very, very informative, and it was kind of like more of a personal meeting because we all got to sit close and just have this conversation. But, again, we've got a lot of investigating to do. We've got a lot of work to do. Once I get Sparks on with me, I think things might explode a little bit from there. I don't want to get too far off in the weeds. I don't want to speak too much on it right now because I want you to hear directly from the horse's mouth. I want you to hear it from Representative Sparks, and and I want you to hear it right from Holly Jones, Representative Jones. Oh, Gary says Becky's favorite word around the house is weirdo now. Hey, the kooky Democrats started something. I didn't start it. I said the word. If there would have been no interruption, if there would have been no response to that, the weirdo word would have just slipped right on through. No big deal. And no one would have said a cotton-picking word about it. But, yeah, apparently she didn't like that word at all. But, anyway, it was a great meeting. It was, again, the information that got dropped on us, the truth bombs that got dropped on us, I'll tell you what, folks. Not that I've thought about quitting the show, because I don't want to mislead you into, but where, sometimes, again, you feel like you get stuck in a rut, you're talking about certain things, whatever. When they said these things, right, I was like, ooh. Patrick looked at me. Tom March, weirdo. There it is. Patrick looked at me and goes, we got work to do. And it just, I mean, it revitalized me. And it's not because it's like, ooh, I can, we can go after people. Like some kind of vengeance type thing. But it's like, this is new, credible information. This can educate people way better than I've been able to do. And I don't think I'm exaggerating at all when I say that this could be really, really big. And this is not me teasing and trying to gain viewership. No, I mean it. I really, really mean it. I believe this could be what we've been looking for to be able to tell people, to get them to grasp the reality of the situation, to realize the gravity of the situation. I think this could be huge for us in grassroots, at the Capitol, just for everyday people like you and me. This could be so big. This could be, because of what Sparks and Jones and Representative Sparks and Representative Jones said, no pun intended, this could be the spark that we've needed to get people active. I hope it is. I hope when this information comes out and you hear it from these fine folks, that this is what gets you involved. This focuses people to get invested, to get themselves educated, and to understand what we've been dealing with for several years, and myself just for the last couple years in the state of Missouri. I think it could literally be that big. But I want them to come on. I want them to relay the information. It's going to sound way better coming from them than it is for me. It's going to sound more credible, okay? And that's what I want. That's what I want here. I want credible information. I want real-time information. And then, once we get our ducks in a row, we can kind of go gangbusters here. And that's what I'm waiting for. So hopefully, I did call, leave a message with Representative Sparks' office. I have not got a call back yet. So I'm probably going to call again Monday or Tuesday or both. I'm going to keep calling until I get an answer. Because I really want to have him on soon. I want people to hear this and understand what we're doing. And why we're doing it. Again, I don't do this for the glory. Now, I'm not gonna lie. If I could get a radio job, or I could do this every day of the week and just do podcasts and make this my living, oh, that would be, I would be just, on cloud nine. That would, get out of the factory and do this. Educate people, talk to important people, and just keep learning, And when I learn, you learn. That's my dream. Will I get to do that? Who knows at this point? But we can't stop now, folks. We really cannot stop doing what we're doing right now. We have to keep going. We have to keep plugging along. And, getting this information out, drilling it into people's heads, and just passing the word along. If we can get this into some media, into newspapers or whatever, and really crack this open. And here's one more thing. I'm not gonna go on too much longer, but here's one more thing I would ask of everybody out there within the sound of my voice. That when this information comes out, I would ask that you would write letters to the editors of papers. I would encourage you. That would be one thing I would really encourage people to do. Not only get involved with your representative at the Capitol and get focused, but also to write letters to your newspaper. Blast the information everywhere. Missy says, yes, please encourage people to pay attention, go to the Capitol, hold elected officials accountable, plus those reps that are pushing back are going to need grassroots support. Absolutely. That's the importance of grassroots and having a lot of people involved in those grassroots to get over to the Capitol and really show your support. Show up in force and prove that you mean what you say and that you will fight tooth and nail to get your freedoms back, to be taxed less, and just get, I hate to use drain the swamp, but, flush the toilet on the turds that are up there in Jeff City, I guess, if I was going to word it and make it my own. Just flush the toilet and drink, flush the turds away, and maybe put the tidy bowl man in there to clean up a little bit. Put the blue water in. But that's what we're going to have to do, folks. We're going to have to get, once this information is out, once you hear it for yourselves, I want you to spread it far and wide. I don't know. It was nuts, but it lit a fire in me that I haven't felt in a little while. And it was quite refreshing. So, again, thanks to Gary. Thanks to Holly Jones for putting this on. And Misty, Holly's LA, because Holly says she's a rock star, and I absolutely believe that to be true. When I've gone to Representative Jones' office, Misty has been very forthcoming with us and keeps us abreast of what's going on, and she's good people. So and we need more LAs like that at the Capitol too, who really like to interact with the people and help them, and we can help them as well. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Again, I will keep pushing to get Representative Sparks on as soon as I can, and then I will be looking to get Representative Jones on next month and finding some other guests as well. But we will be cracking open the HRCC information and going in depth. And again, what I would do is, if I were all of you, I would start calling your reps, see if you can get the amount on the envelope that they've been handed by HRCC, and maybe, just maybe, we can come up with an average donation of what they asked for. And that, now, again, this is just on the Republican side, but I'm sure the Democrat side is exactly the same. And then we can kind of figure out, just from representative-wise, how much money they're bringing in. Now, I know some of them are just like, yeah, you can, go take a flying leap through a rolling donut because I'm not giving you anything. But there are others in leadership positions that are doing it. Maybe we can kind of come up with a dollar amount. How much money are we talking? Because I think if we can come up with some figures like that, it will really just help us help others understand the gravity of the situation, and how, because when people hear the dollar amount, they'll be like, whew, wow. That type of money breeds a lot of corruption. So we got to work together, between myself and Tom Martz and Patrick and Catherine and Kirby, and so many others. Casey Rich and Voodoo Queen and Gofoot Grant and some of these others. I believe that we can find what we need and really knock this thing out of the park. All right, folks, that'll do it for this week's edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Again, thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you all right here next Friday evening at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, of course, the Missouri Liberty Report.
Want more freedom? It starts with you. Join us next week on the Missouri Liberty Report and find out how you can get involved to take back your state.
All right, thanks, folks, again for joining in with me. And, yeah, again, this could be really big. I hope it is, just for the simple fact that if we can get this information out, grassroots and some of these other and I'm not going to include myself in this, okay? Because there are some people that work way harder than I do, okay? If they, just my situation, I don't get to work as hard at this as other people, but we got a lot of fine folks who could really, really bring this home, and it's going to bring a lot of credibility to grassroots and some of these other podcasters and folks in media. And that would be great. So thanks to Gary Ride, Misty Atkinson, Tenacious Tortoise, Tom Martz, Casey Rich, Voodoo Queen, Warrior Class 3. Did I miss anybody else? John Doe is in here with us. Make sure I didn't every week I feel like I miss somebody when I'm in here thanking everybody. But yeah, you guys are great. Thanks for all the comments and questions and everything else. Again, I greatly appreciate Grecian formula for all of those who know what that is. Might be showing my age a little bit here, But I greatly appreciate all you guys. And Tom, thanks so much, brother, for lining me and Paul up. I really appreciate that. And hopefully next time things are more in his favor as far as where he's at, not having to drive in his car and try to have a conversation driving in St. Louis. But hopefully next time he's able to maybe be at home when we do this. But, yeah, I appreciate each and every one of you. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend. And I guess I would be, I wouldn't be a good podcast host, and I wouldn't be a good person if I didn't say Happy Veterans Day to all of those out there who have served in the military. Thank you, guys. Appreciate all of you as well. So, again, take care, everybody. We'll see you next week right here, 6:30 p.m. Central Time for the Missouri Liberty Report. Take care, everybody.